Hi guys, welcome back. All right, so this is going to be a today's love topic. We shall see where this one goes. I feel like we should go in a different route today. I feel like maybe we should and could do some I don't know, I feel more artistic perhaps today. So, okay, we have the moon followed by the lovers. And hold on, I've got to strategically give everybody a top that's not wearing one in this card. Um, some facade is crumbling away, and the facade is the thing that was hidden. If you look, as the moon crumbles and cracks, what we see is inside we have a bird in its nest. It almost seems like if deep down what someone has wanted is to nest, to be home, to have a space like this, and they've been suppressing that, it feels like they can't really keep suppressing the truth of what it is that they want. When we have this lovers card, and it's such a beautiful card, and I'm so sorry that I have to cover so much of it. It's just, um, anything that has unclothed individuals on it gets flagged. And so I have to be really careful, even though there's nothing inappropriate about it whatsoever, but it's all right. We just be delicate. We have this masculine and feminine that are, well, she's made out of a tree and he's kind of like part of the landscape, more of like the rock. And then behind them, there's a rocky mountain and you can't really see, but they are carved into that mountain in a lover's embrace. My apologies. Okay. So sorry, my pup was patrolling even outside the windows. um, okay, so what my thought is on this is that these characters, because of the mountain behind them and they're carved into it and they're in a lover's embrace, but they've put it behind them and they both stand here. He has like a pear in front of his face, so we can't even see his face. They both have a memory of the love that they shared. And this is both of them. And because he's made out of rock partially and she's made out of a tree partially, I'm going to say that they've been rooted in their separation, even though the memory of one another has stayed so prominent in their subconscious. And maybe that's just it, because this is the subconscious. Maybe they both have a strong memory of like, God, I felt like home when I was with you. You felt like the place I was supposed to be. We have a 9 of Pentacles and we have a 3 of Pentacles in the reverse. Being single, living, I mean, honestly, very stable, secure lives, but not together. And neither one of them has moved on with other people. Neither one of them has collaborated. I feel like these are two people that are completely single because that whatever time they shared together in their past, that is still where they live. Like in their heads, in their minds, they still live in that past, but that's their secret that they keep in the back of their minds. Like, I found where my home was. I found my person. I found the individual that I loved. I had something that I would have called home once upon a time. I had the lover that I wanted, the person I would have chosen once upon a time. So neither one of them has gone on to collaborate with anybody else. They both, I mean, I don't know if they've never dated other people, but we see them as never setting up house with anybody else. For this storyline, these characters are completely unattached. They are not collaborating with anyone, including one another. One of them is the straight up emperor, but this is a messy emperor. He stands acting really calm while the waves of emotion, he's not drowning in it, right? But he's pretty saturated in his emotions. He tries to keep his crown from getting wet, from touching the water. Look, it's not even on his head, it's kind of hovering around the top of his head. And what I would say here is that this masculine, I gotta say, he can stand here and act like no wave is going to come crashing over him, and we can see that we got big old sneaker waves and things coming up. The sea is encroaching on the land. Why do we have trees with waves coming in already? It's like his emotions are starting to flood, and they're going to flood his landscape. Just as we see the moon crumbling and cracking, and we see deep in that subconscious, what there's a longing for is that nest, that home, that love that they knew once upon a time, and the ability to keep that as like a distant memory, that's been a secret that they could just say, well, I return to that privately and I think about that person. I remember the passion, the love, the lover's embrace that I shared with them, but I can just keep that as my little secret space that I visit once in a while as I remember. But then, I don't think about it in my day to day. It doesn't consume me because that was in the past. Well, that's not going to be true anymore. This emperor has compartmentalized, but they're losing the ability to do that. As much as they try, their emotions are starting to take over their. I feel like they were very controlling in how they were like, well, that was in the past. It's not a part of my present. Even if I secretly remember it, I'm not going to acknowledge it. They're going to have to start acknowledging it, is what this says. Now, an emperor is not somebody who runs from something. They may have distanced themselves from this memory because they were like, well, it's over. I mean, it was what it was. King of Swords. So we're getting a peek into their memory. They are starting to relive everything that happened around the time that they knew her. She could have been a blonde, doesn't have to be, it's just how she shows up here. There was some other femme fatale involved here with dark hair. There was some kind of like, I feel like this is like an old, I always say an old Humphrey Bogart movie where there's like, what do they call him? Like the GI man, the government official guy. Right? Is that what they were called? I thought it's like police, private detective. The G-man, there we go. PI is private investigator, G-man. Sorry, I I don't know all of my old 1960s you know uh, film noir character names very well. But they're remembering all of this, and there was secrets, and there were problems, and there was what you see cannot be spoken of, and there were too many people involved, and there was all kinds of drama and intrigue, and under the setting or the header of like something divine, but everything was a big old mess. Whatever was happening in their life at the time that they knew her, it feels like a James Bond film played out, or some minimized version of it, something highly tumultuous. They in the past were a king of swords. Today they're an emperor. They're older, they're wiser, but in the past, in their memory bank, as they are unable to prevent themselves from thinking back to that time with her, now they're reliving it. And in their memory bank, we see the whole story. We see the villains and the intrigue and the drama, and we see the secrets, and we see everything that happened. Even though this was divinely guided, I feel like it was the right time to have met her and completely the wrong time to have met her, all rolled into one. They are kind of going back in their mind, and they're literally reliving it right now, probably because their subconscious cannot stop thinking about this. Okay, so what about it? I mean, you're reliving all of it. You're starting to become overwhelmed by the emotional component. Wow, justice in the reverse. This is something that instead of them, I think that for years maybe, they would march themselves right past this memory and say, nope, I can't deal with it. What happened happened. That's a closed chapter. And they probably very unfairly refused to either take responsibility or refused to break it down and honestly admit everything that happened, even what happened to them, what happened that they did, this big drama that they were embroiled in at some point when they met her, the lover that they still think about. They're just now ready to fully acknowledge the truth of everything that happened. And this is all acknowledging in themselves. That's because they're an emperor. Now, in the past, they were a king of swords, so I don't think they tried to do wrong. By the way, they've come across as an Aries, and they've also come across as a Libra so far. We do have Gemini, and we did have Pisces at the beginning of our story as well. So there is something now that they're starting to feel like I feel an overwhelming need to set things right. Wow. Because they dealt with an empress in the past. That's who she is. You notice this is still the person that they love. She always was the person that they loved. 8 of Swords, and she never knew what in the hell happened. She was somehow at the center of everything. She had no idea how much. Look at all these sharp objects. she kind of felt like she got flushed down the toilet when in fact she didn't know what kind of drama and intrigue and, we'll say, danger, since this feels very much like a James Bond episode, right? She had no idea. She's over here with perfume bottles and roses, and she doesn't know that all was not as it seemed. Here we have lipstick, but it casts a shadow of a little dagger. There's something here where, without her knowing it, their messed up life, she was almost dragged into something that could have been really bad for her. She doesn't know any of this. They do. They know all of it because they were the King of Swords. They were eyes wide open. She sensed a few things going on because she's looking back over her shoulder. She might even have started to get pieces of what was going on, but she never knew the extent of it. They feel like they owe her a setting it right to tell her the truth. Now here's the thing, it's not just about like, I've after all this time I finally need to go set things right with her. I should tell her the full truth. She's never known what really happened. I She's a freaking empress. I should tell her how much, she meant to me. I should tell her out of full respect for her. Nothing is ruder than keeping somebody in the dark. Um, it's disrespectful, and that's not the way you treat an empress. I owe her full explanation. But that's not their real motive. Their real motive is, and I don't know if this is something they can even admit to themselves yet, but their real motive is with that Two of Cups. They're slowing down in life a little bit. Remember, they're the ones who, well, I think they both share this, but they're the ones primarily where what they've tried to keep hidden and stored in their subconscious is crumbling. They're the ones who want that nest. They want to be home. They're single, they're alone, they're older, their life, they feel more in control of their life, but they don't want the James Bond kind of drama and intrigue. I don't know if they ever wanted it, but we didn't see that part. But they want something different for themselves. And with this Two of Cups, they actually want that connection. They want that bond with her, but in their mind, she's younger than them. She still could skate by them, do circles around them. They kind of feel like the wolf, hungry, like she's prey. I don't know if they've aged prematurely or they look at themselves and they see gray hair, gray beard, and they think, I'm different now. I'm not that, youthful person that I was back when I knew her. I wouldn't even be capable of dealing with all the drama and intrigue anymore. I've grown beyond that, but also I've probably, I'm a lot older than her, and there could be an age difference. There's a piece of themselves that feels like they would be like, a wolf hunting for the prey, and she's so much younger and so much more full of vitality than I am, and she probably wouldn't want anything to do with me at this point, but I still feel like she's my Two of Cups. They're becoming more openly sentimental, and also simultaneously they're saying, I owe her the explanation of everything that happened. She's an empress. I owe her the respect. She has no clue what actually happened. She was treated by me with disrespect because I wouldn't tell her the truth. She didn't know what kind of a dangerous game either I was involved in or that she was very narrowly involved in because of me. Something, can we see? I mean, this storyline is like, grab your popcorn because it's like we're telling a movie plot right now. Tell me what the King of Swords story really was. Can we let's just dive on in. Judgment and the Knight of Swords in the reverse. Okay, so if they started dealing with her, all of a sudden it came to a screeching halt because of this. The judgment call came through. Now I'm covering this kind of statue person because they also are topless, but you notice how what they actually hold is like this mirror, okay? This, I would not normally look at the judgment card as necessarily the law, because normally that would be more with the justice card, but we did already have justice out. But the judgment call can be like, usually it's like the horn of Gabriel being blown, and then we, bring things back to life. Well, in this case, what might have come back to life was either some actions that they took in the past came back to haunt them all of a sudden. They were suddenly being held accountable by some things in their own life, or for whatever reason, there was the mirror was being held up to them and another person. So I don't know if they and another individual once upon a time um, made some kind of big mistake in life, but we have a phone call that came through. This is the data phone. Data phone. It's surrealism movement from right around the World War I era, but it was about nonsense and chaos. After the Victorian era, everything in life was, very uptight and prim and proper. And then, war breaks out, and all of a sudden, the prim and proper Victorian era is like, you know, war is the exact opposite. There's no organization, there's no structure. It's barbaric. And it just seems like it's, such a huge juxtaposition of like, okay, so we're all prim and proper, but then we're animals. And so artists got really like defiant and upset about like the hypocrisy of that. How do we go from prim and proper to a world of madness? And so they started to say, well, if nothing makes any sense, then art doesn't have to either. So we'll come up with a movement of art called Dadaism. And that's that surrealism movement. And then they would take all kinds of stuff that wasn't artistic necessarily and then make it art. Like a urinal was like a very famous piece from that era. And that shows up in this deck of cards that will probably come out. But here we have like, a telephone that's a shoe connected. Here we go again with the nest. I feel sorry for the lengthy explanation on that, but that factors in like from prim and proper to total chaos. That I mean, this card looks like total chaos and drama, and they thought they had everything under control, and then like their past came back to haunt them. All of a sudden, if they had been building that nest with her or thought that they were going to, they had a lover's embrace. It's like then they got a phone call from their past and all the nonsense and the chaos that either they had. I do feel like it came back to haunt them. Something from their past showed back up in their life, and it was drama and intrigue. Maybe they were involved with somebody that was a shady character. Even here, this person has like you know, uh, it's a monocle, right? The one eyeglass. It's like somebody has been watching them and called them up. This feels like somebody from their past showed back up, or the law got wind of something that they had been involved in with some shady energy, and all of a sudden they disappeared on her because they were hoping to either keep her out of this mess that could have negatively impacted her, or something along the lines of their mess. They did not want it to touch her in any way, so the less she knew the better. Again, like I said, this is very much one of those movie-esque stories. But their past called, and it was a mess, and it completely brought everything to a screeching halt between them and her. If that's the mess that they need to describe to her, why did everything come to a screeching halt? Let me ask this: why has so much time elapsed? Because I feel like for them to have, aged, and for them to have become an emperor. Um, Five of Pentacles. Oh, so their life was in chaos for a while. Five of Pentacles, you see that this person is juggling, and they're up in this tree and they're juggling all these things with their hands that through the weird little cutouts in the tree. Well, that would be really hard to be able to get your hands unstuck either. And then we have all these people on stilts. It's almost like suddenly they were in like a house of cards. Their actions and what they had to keep juggling and keep things up in the air, everything was like unstable and fragile. I feel like they were running behind all the time, just barely. I mean, I think they used all their energy just to try to keep the balls in the air, just to try to deal with the situation. And they could have had other people that were dependent upon them. So during whatever their past was, it came back to haunt them. Whatever situation became messy, or however they became implicated in something, all of a sudden it was a game of, whack-a-mole. all I can do is try to deal with this, and then the other thing pops up, and then I have to go back, and it was just a continual juggling act. They weren't making stability, they weren't creating anything. They thought about contacting her many, many times. They and she maybe did contact them. They could have gone back and forth with her a couple times, never giving her full answers. We have her as the Queen of Swords, and remember, they were the King of Swords. They wanted to be with her from the beginning. They met her and they thought they were going to be able to be with her, and then life imploded at the same time that they met her. This is, she walked away from him. She kind of tentatively came back. Then she felt she had to protect herself, but she kept finding out a little bit more because we see her face get larger, but her body is more hidden. She may have eventually, because Queen of Swords, they don't like to be lied to, and you really can't lie to them. She may have said, "You're a liar. There's a bunch of you that's not true." She didn't know what it was because remember, we saw her with the Eight of Swords. She said, "You are intentionally keeping me in the dark. You are treating me like you're flushing me down the toilet." There was something here, and I don't think that they said a word when she called them out on this. And she wasn't wrong. They were keeping her in the dark. She knew that they were lying about a million different things. By the way, she may have a very nice body. They remember her turning her back on them, but they also have very clear memories of her physique. We have the magician in the reverse. She definitely said, "You have lied to me from the gate. You're a trickster." And they did not disagree with that. They let that statement hang in the air, and it was like confirmation. I am a trickster. I have not been straightforward with her. That is absolutely true. Okay. And Three of Wands. And they may have told themselves, someday in the future, I'll be able to tell her the whole situation. I was asking, why is this taking so long? Now we see why. Because that big mess and all of their juggling act and all of her figuring this out, even without them saying anything, she didn't know what the lies were about, didn't know what the trickster energy was about. She only knew that it was trickster. And, even on this magician card, you notice how we have a person standing here, but then their head, this is almost like one of the, the monkey gods, but we don't even see the top half of our monkey person, our monkey god. I'm sorry, I can't think of his name. I only know I've seen these. I think it's a god, a deity. Um, but then we see this other, like, also non-existent, you know, dominant face, which is probably her, facing them in like the 5D realm. If they've been trying to manifest, like, please understand without me telling you, yes, I'm a trickster. I am. It's not maybe for the reason you think. Please know me better than that. I feel you. I know that you're right there on the other side of this energetically. Yes, I manifested you. Yes, I wish I could tell you, but I can't. Which again doesn't, this seems dramatic for no reason to me, but whatever. It's the storyline we've got. I don't get to pick it. They want that, you feel like you know me better than this, even though I didn't show you the real me. Part of me was real. It's a little bit like, remember how I loved you? That's real, even if I can't tell you, everything going on in my world, and you don't know my head, and you don't know what's going on in my head right now. You do know, like, think back to the physical aspects that we shared. That was all real. That I showed you that I loved you. That was all real. This was a very spiritual connection, and it was the person that they wanted to be with. And she says none of that was real. Everything about you was a trickster. She is very astute. She got clearer and clearer on how much they were hiding, even though not clear at all about what it was, only that they did. They wanted something from her, which was true, but they originally intended to have a king and queen of swords energy. They were going to build a life with her. They were going to have the nest with her. And then a single phone call from their past shattered all that. And that's when they decided not to tell her anything. They thought they could protect her. She called them a liar and a trickster after multiple attempts at trying to understand what was going on and getting nothing from them. And they did not disagree that they were a liar and a trickster, even though energetically they kept trying to send that vibe of, but please remember that I loved you. Please remember that. They said sometime in the future I'll be able to talk to her again, and maybe someday I'll be able to set it all right. We got that egg that'll be cracked and something will hatch out of it in the sky. Someday I'll be able to tell her everything. Well, that someday seems to be arriving. Why is it arriving now with them as that emperor energy? Six of Pentacles. They are in a place where they have been building their ship to sail wherever they wish. Their life is their own again. Um, but now, what kind of a life are they going to build? They want to. They want to co-create. Six of Pentacles. They had to get not only through their whatever their past was, it came back to haunt them. Then they had to get through that juggling time where it was the whack-a-mole of just trying to keep stuff together. And now they're finally at a place where they started to regroup and get their footing and start building their ship, mastering their own life again. And now, only now are they the emperor who's ready to give something. And I think that's why now their subconscious, the way they locked her away in their subconscious thoughts, they're just now returning to those thoughts of her. Six of Swords sideways, Ace of Swords upright, and they're wondering, is it too late? Do I have any opportunity to sail toward her? And if you look, here's that ship that would be sailing in the sky on feathers instead of in the sea, and it doesn't have sails. It has those like cypress trees. The same one that they said, someday I'll tell her the truth. Someday this egg will crack and I will have a cypress tree growing. I will have the truth that comes out. This is very much like, it was very much in the sky because it's like lofty, like someday. I mean, cypress trees don't grow out of eggs in the sky, right? It's a little bit of like, even they thought it's a fat chance that'll ever happen. But in fact, the day has arrived. Now the question is, do I go toward her and tell her the full truth and risk that this will be my only chance? If she doesn't want to hear the truth now, then it's done, it's over. She may say, I severed my energetic cord with you a long time ago, don't care what you have to say. They may have to face that, but one way or the other, it's time to break this off. Meaning break off the permanent like memory that stays in their mind of the nest that they could have had. The fact that this person would even consider or question, can I move toward her or should I just let this go, even though I doubt I'll ever get over her? The fact that they could even consider that doesn't speak very well of them as an emperor. An emperor always sets their stuff right, and I wonder about that. So I might be misinterpreting that because it's not the way an emperor would operate. An emperor would never be sitting in the question mark of, and maybe they aren't because the Six of Pentacles is upright. They've finally got their life together enough that now they could really do the building that they wanted to do with her all that time ago. Maybe this is just like, what if she doesn't want anything to do with me? Well, this will be the breaking off point. I'll when I speak the truth to her, there's no going back. Then she'll have all the pieces of the puzzle, and then she can make a decision, and she may say goodbye to me. This is a thing that they have to face. 10 of Cups. Wow, they have gone through every scenario there is. All these scenarios. Look at all of these heads that emerge with other heads and emerge with other heads and emerge with other heads. This is not a 10 of Cups card the way we typically expect to see it. 10 of Cups is happy, happy, happy. Nothing happy about this. Nothing but stress on this. Nothing but them living and reliving and hypothesizing and rehypothesizing all the ways that life could go. So it's becoming more stressful because they don't have answers, even though when they think about what their happiness is, she's always in it, but they don't know what life could be or what she's going to say. I think that they have envisioned a life with her or are envisioning a life with her in 1,000 different ways. And how could this conversation go and what might happen? But what's on the line is whether or not this could happen. Because they're so, it could also be like, oh my God, if I start telling her what happened, how many other questions are there going to be? And well, everything is going to be discussed. I mean, that's especially with the Queen of Swords. There will be nothing about their life that's going to be withheld, especially not after this. They're going to have to reveal everything and all the time. So if I think that's another component of this is their happiness, but what would it look like? I think at every point in their mindset Every scenario they come up with, though, they would rather go through it with her, is what this says. Nine of Wands. It's very much, we have all these elephants on these long, spindly legs. These are the memories and the wishes and the hopes that have actually gotten them through a lot of the most difficult times, because they're like, at least I met her and I have somebody amazing and I have that nest that I was going to build, and someday I'm going back and somehow, some way, I'm going to have this. I'll heal. Things will get fixed. This was not an easy thing that they went through. Now, this doesn't mean that it was easy for her to go through either. I mean, she was obviously on the receiving end of their drama that she was iced out of with no explanation. So we haven't even seen her side of things. This right now is all about them trying to heal. I, I, they have been trying to heal. There has been a lot of, they needed to get strong enough to face her too. As an emperor, they should be strong enough. Page of Wands upright, 10 of Wands upright. So what they're doing right now is they are talking themselves through the worst case scenario. Worst case scenario is it. I'm going to have to start from scratch. She's going to say, thanks for the explanation. You can go now. They have to face that ending and the possibility of how rough it will be if she wants nothing more to do with them. And I say that because this is like, laying down this huge burden. They need to unburden themselves. They owe her an explanation. They need to set things right with her, no matter what. That's not even in question. It's very heavy. It's very hard for them to do this, even though it's also the thing they've been looking forward to doing. But remember the result, her action. They have had to, again, paint in their mind a million different ways of how this could go, including worst case scenarios, so that they can fathom if she says, no thanks, not interested, so that they can be okay with losing her, because they will have already, envisioned, if worst case scenario occurs and she wants nothing to do with me, I have to be able to have already faced it. That's how this person prepares. King of Pentacles, talk about preparation. They have been, I think that they also, this pushed them to say, I really have to have a stable life. I can't just come in and be like, okay, all my problems are resolved. I haven't rebuilt anything for myself, but at least now I can tell you the mess that I was in, and that's why I dipped out and didn't talk to you. I think that they're saying, no, what I have to do is I have to have built some level of like competent life for myself, some space, some home for myself, some location, so that I have, they've been like underground building a foundation first, and their life was a mess for a while, but they have built something stable as they've been, preparing themselves to come communicate with her. And they're giving themselves, it's almost like we're watching them give themselves a pep talk. Okay, here we go. Here comes the day. This could be as Leo energy, so maybe one sunny day in Leo season. They either are going to point blank show up and ask her to breakfast. Um, you notice this very gray environment that they're in, but then we have this shining sun, which is the sunny side up egg. I think what they've finally decided is I will be happy to at least tell her the truth, speak a truth to her, no matter what else happens. I have put my life back in order. I am finally doing the thing I promised myself I would do. Someday in the future, I'll tell her everything. No matter what the outcome is, no matter what she says or doesn't say to me, I at least will have followed through with everything. And I can be happy about that. And I think that's their consolation, is that I may not get her back, but I will at least have done everything that I said I would do. I would course correct, I would protect her, then I would fix things, then I would rebuild things, and then I would come back and I would tell her the truth of everything. Six of Cups, I will return to her, and I'm no longer petrified of what she will or won't say. Instead, I'll be at least able to hold my head up and say, I did everything that I possibly could. And I followed through with my plan. This is that's an emperor's move for sure. That is definitely an emperor's move. They are handling everything the way they should, and they can be proud of themselves for that. And they are returning, And it doesn't matter how tough this is. They might be flying to get to her because this is like, it looks like a rock, it looks like trees, but it's also actually like a big bird, like an impressionistic vision of a almost like a turkey or even a bald eagle. But they're flying down from the sky. She may be someplace where I see elderly individuals and younger individuals. She may be living someplace where she's like near elderly parents or something. Sorry, now that's a weird side note, but it's there. They may be going to visit her. Not may, they are in this. They're just going to go ahead and do it. They are returning to her. Knight of Pentacles. They fly in fast, and then it's like, okay, this is going to take a while to explain all of this. And I think that they take, I don't know if they fly to wherever she is and then they take a moment, maybe a day or something, even in like prayer, because they're riding a praying mantis. It's like the actual arriving to communicate with her. They take some time and collect their thoughts. How do I begin this story? How do I explain this? Because it's going to be a long explanation. It's going to be a long story. Wow, Three of Swords. And then they look her up on possibly social media. She has been deeply wounded. She, in this case, I'm covering her again because she doesn't have clothes on. She's a butterfly. Her chest is open, like she's been dissected. And we see layers and layers and layers and layers and layers of her butterfly wings. But on social media, she appears really happy. But in fact, there's been a ton of reliving pain for her. So I don't know if they somehow are, now that all their focus is on her, they might just now be fully appreciating how much they could have caused her pain. Um, it's like it's just now because they've been so focused on what they had to do that it's only now that they're in closer proximity to her, ready to talk to her, that it's starting to hit them like, oh my God, but what has she been through? I mean, I don't even know what her life has been. I don't know what kind of hurts and pains she's gone through. I don't know what her life has been. I don't know how badly my treatment of her impacted her. Wow, Seven of Wands. This is new to them. They were such a compartmentalizer. They have not been somebody who's been capable of thinking about how their situation, the way they chose to handle it, would have impacted another person. And now they're still, it's the repercussions of this is just now becoming more real to them. That compartmentalization, that they use their mind like a solid brick, and they've actually become pretty proud. Like, I did everything I was going to. Now I can come talk to her, and now they're like, wait a minute, it was all from my perspective. Those compartmentalization blocks, they're realizing they have no idea what she maybe has gone through. And this is a new thing for them to think about, which sounds pretty freaking selfish, honestly. But I guess we can say they're at least considering it now. But that's a major blockage because they don't really know what to say or what to do. Death card here and the Four of Cups. And we go right back to them thinking, there's no way she's going to take me back. There's no way. It's probably over. There's the nest that I wanted. There's that. But this can be a missed opportunity. There's no way she'll take me back. Well, you better try. That's all I can say. You definitely, again, they're thinking about it from their perception all the time. All of this still seems to be a character who only thinks about what it's like for them. They're just now thinking about her, but they're still thinking about how she's going to block me. She's not going to want anything to do with me. It's going to be a missed opportunity. They really need to get out of their heads and just start taking the right actions in their life, is what I think in this, just because I don't see, I mean, we see their thought process, right? But just when they're going to do something and they bog it back down, they think for sure there's no way she'll love them again. She has to have fallen out of love with them. Anybody would be out of love with them for the way they iced somebody out. They disappeared. There's no way she's going to believe that this was something that, it's like they say, there's no way I'd even have a right to come back into her life. Well, you might be right about that, but you also still owe the energy of putting it right. With the King of Wands will still take action, but they're definitely going to hold back on their emotions, their love, their outpouring. Um, they may actually, again, you notice the compartmentalizing. They're really going to try to, um, I think that they're going to approach her almost robotic, which is unnatural for a King of Wands. They're going to try really hard to keep passion out of it and be almost formal, is what it seems like. Like I just wanted to give you an explanation. I know it's overdue. It could be something like that. And I was like, oh, dude, what are you doing? We get the fool. They feel like a fool asking for an audience. Will you talk to me? They are going to go ahead and ask her, will you talk to me? But they are walking in like somebody walking to the gallows. It's like, this is so stupid. And I'm really just going to sound crazy. And, I'm sure if anything, she wouldn't think of me anymore because she called me out on being somebody that was untruthful. She wasn't wrong about that. Now here I am thinking I was going to come in and be like, oh, I can finally be with my empress. I love her so much. I always, blah, blah, blah. And instead they're like, what am I thinking? Who would deal with somebody like me when I did that in the past? Even though we saw a bunch of what went on with them. But as they started to finally think about what would that have looked like to her, what would she have experienced on her end? They are like, I wouldn't take me back. Well, you're not her, so don't make decisions for her. What you are is you. And if you feel foolish, maybe it's not a bad thing to have to feel embarrassed, because you certainly made some pretty big decisions on her behalf in the past to protect her by icing her out. You know that that was disrespectful at this point, and you've taken a damn long time to tell her any truth. So do you feel foolish? Yeah, because you're just now seeing you through her eyes. Well, maybe that's not a bad thing, but you still, if you're an emperor, you're still going to do the thing that is right, which is you owe the explanation. If you care about this person and you feel like you mistreated them, you need to course correct it. An emperor will always course correct, even at the expense of their own feeling foolish. An emperor is not in the way of because of their ego. It's to their credit that they can see themselves through her eyes now, even though in the past, I think they thought they were doing the right thing. I mean, at no point did we see them as kings in the reverse or anybody like that. They also didn't come out as like, immature. So I believe they really thought they were doing the right thing, the only thing that they could do in what they thought was an impossible situation. They felt like this is not her problem to deal with. She cannot have her life disrupted by my mess. It is my duty to protect her and keep her out of the way of my mess. Like all of this, we can understand why they did what they did, and nothing was done with ill intent. However, that does not mean that this was necessarily right. They didn't really do wrong, but they didn't really do right. That's just a tough storyline, right? So they're going to go ahead and face her with that Three of Cups, even though they feel like an absolute fool because they're thinking it is 110,000% over. We have a Two of Pentacles. It's kind of in the reverse. You know what? To their credit, they're just going to go ahead and they're not going to try to soften it, and they're not going to try to even hope for anything. They're just going to lay it all out. I don't have a hope that you're going to want to talk to me, but I wanted to finally tell you everything. I'm not going to hold back anything. You know what? This assumption that everything is over and there's no way that they could even win her back might be the best thing ever, because they are laying it all on the lines. They're not trying to sugarcoat. They're not, in fact, with this Ten of Pentacles, and here they are riding around in this urinal, and we have this chess game on the top of their head with just two pieces left on it. And what we're really seeing is, I think they're just going to lay it out exactly the way it was. You, if you ever thought that I was having some fabulous Ten of Pentacles life, let me tell you, it's been like riding around in a urinal. It's been, and I think they just launch into the entire explanation we've already seen. I'm not going to go through it again because we've already talked about it for 44 minutes. But this person is, sometimes when we have absolutely no guard up, we don't think that we have anything to lose. He's pretty much, I think this is the realest version of him, Is he an emperor? Yes. Is he somebody who also is not putting any veneer on? Yes. Is he laying everything down and just it is kind of like I completely surrender. Not like I well, it is a defeat imagery, but it's also when we have nothing left to lose because we think we already lost it anyway. So we may as well just say it all exactly as it is. There's no point in trying to save face. There's no point in trying to soften anything. They're going to be so raw, so real, and I think that is actually where they turn this thing around. Because the Ten of Pentacles is maybe we've hit rock bottom. But that's also where there's a foundation of stability. That's who they needed to be if they're going to talk to her at all, for her to hear them, believe them, actually know that they're speaking truth because they have nothing left to hide. It's a good thing, actually, that this has taken so long and that things played out the way it did. It's the only way they were going to really be able, wow, really be able to lay this out the way it was. I gotta say, with this Knight of Wands, I'm sorry I can't show the rest of this card. It's a statue that's very jumbled up and kind of dismantled, and then we have this masculine like resting against it, and it's like in this case, this is a very sensual card. That's the other reason I couldn't show it. With that Knight of Wands, it's I believe that they are. This is almost like somebody saying passion and romance and all that hasn't even been on my mind. I was actually thinking about you. That's actually what I remembered, because the rest of my life has been pretty much uh just this. It's been a very murky, dark road. This is somebody who I think she actually believes, because we have the star, because they're coming in a little bit like defeated and just raw and real, and they're not mincing words, they're not hiding anything. They don't feel like they're going to win her back. They don't feel like they could reverse the hands of time. They don't feel like there's any explanation that's going to make her want them at this point. But because of that, they're like, I already feel so stupid anyway. I may as well just tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, including I don't think they've even dated anybody. I don't know how long it's been, but maybe they feel almost half foolish about that too. But I think the Knight of Wands is about passion, and this is like kind of a passionless life that they've had as well. But I think all of this in totality is exactly why finally it's like, oh my God, they're actually speaking a truth. She came out as a Queen of Swords. This is the star card, so it's Aquarius. This feels like it's her. And she's actually a chess piece too. Remember, on this chessboard there was only two left. There's him and her. And I kind of feel like she is realizing this is the real truth. She tried to piece things together and couldn't understand it. She knew they weren't telling her truth, but that's as far as she could get without any more information. She didn't want to deal with somebody that wasn't totally raw and real with her anyway. We see that she has been healing over time from something that she knew she didn't know all the details about. But I think that them coming in the way they are, laying everything on the line and being that real, is actually the reason. This was actually her wish come true. If someday they would just lay everything on the line, no no pretense at all. Tell me everything, let me see the real you. That was her wish, and it's actually happening, and it's all because there isn't any more facade, there isn't anything else. We have a Queen of Wands. Yes, she's been deeply wounded by this, because this is an image of Frida, and Frida was a very injured. She suffered a terrible injury. That the real life painter Frida suffered a terrible injury, um, and a lot of pain and surgeries and such when she was a young individual. And so a lot of her paintings, you see some of that reflected. Well, we have this painter who's sitting here in bed and her body is disjointed, and so we have a complicated Queen of Wands. So this Queen of Swords has become. She's explaining, yeah, it was incredibly painful. Oh, life has been really hard, but it's also been filled with a lot of, like inspirational moments and a lot of things that I've been doing. And I'm hearing your entire story, and it, even if like a lot of the hurt I went through, it's healing right now. You notice we actually have a matched pair, the King and the Queen of Wands. He's still kind of sitting there, not sure what to expect from her, feeling like, I'm just going to be clinical about it, just lay it all out and withhold some of the passion. She's actually, I think these two are still very passionate about each other. Like, honestly, this feels like very romantically passionate about each other, even though what has occurred in their love story, their life story, has been drama to an extent that we rarely see. It has been an epic saga of time spent, time apart, time wasted, hurt, unnecessary hurt and pain, confusion. But I have to say, she's understanding this took a lot of courage for them to come toward her. And with this strength card, she might actually even be realizing, yes, you really hurt me with not telling me a truth, but I've heard your entire story and I know you're not thinking that you're just coming in with an explanation and then I'll love you again. But the truth of it is, she does love this person. She may even respect them because she's saying, truth be told, my life has actually been considerably easier, even with the pain I've gone through. My life has actually been considerably easier. She may be an artist. Maybe she makes her living doing art. Maybe that's been really healing. Maybe there's been a lot that has gone very good in her life. And she's realizing, in truth, this person has had a much rougher time. And she may also be realizing that in a certain way, they kind of have put her on the pedestal. They did want to protect her for the right reason. They have wanted to return to her when they had their life in order. They are speaking truth now. And it's very much like she has a lot of respect for them because she's realizing the truth of what their life has been. Nobody knows what anybody's life has been until they've walked in it or until they've heard it, like the unabridged version, all the raw and gritty details, all of the just the reality of what it can be like. Tower in the reverse, 5 of Cups. They still are fully expecting, yeah, but she's just, she's just telling me that she understands. They haven't heard her say, like, I still love you, but they're saying, well, this is, I mean, she didn't tell me to get lost yet. But she hasn't exactly embraced me either. But there's the acknowledgement that something's not done, not over. She has, with this 10 of Swords is not our typical ending anyway, but it also turned out sideways. They have kind of dreamt of having love with her again and then said, oh, there's no way. She'll never love me again. And instead, it's like, wait a second, this is starting to click. She's talking to me, talking back and forth with me. She's not telling me goodbye. She also isn't telling me she loves me, but she isn't telling me goodbye. And they were very sure that this would be, that's it. Yeah, it's the weirdest shuffle I've ever done. 6 of Wands, she's also not grinding away for like every detail because they've already displayed everything there was. The 6 of Wands is a certain energy of, if anything, I think that they sense that she is not looking at them as some loser or some monster, but that she actually has some sense of like respect for them. They sense it. It's not that she's saying it, but they can tell by her reaction. She is not belittling them. She is not saying something rude to them. She is not rolling her eyes at them. She still isn't opening up. They can't quite read her, but they do know she's giving me time and space and an audience. She's not opening up to me exactly, but when a Queen of Pentacles gives you their time, that is a gift, and she is doing this. Page of Swords, they're trying so hard to read her without getting too excited. They're trying to understand, what is she thinking? What is she thinking? She's not telling me to get lost. She seems to be giving me the respect. She's not judging me. She's not telling me what mistakes I made. She's not calling me names. What is she doing? 4 of Pentacles, man, they do not know how to read this. They're kind of waiting, kind of like bated breath. What is she going to do next? They're holding back, letting her take the lead on this, but they can't figure out, what does she think of all this? Five of Wands, it's kind of like they can almost sense she must be like going round and round in her own head, kind of like trying to sort through information, trying to figure out how she feels about things. They already know this is a big journey for her in her own mind. Eight of Pentacles, they're starting to get this inkling that something is moving in the right direction, that we're getting a hold of this. There's progress being made right now. They are starting to have hope that, oh my God, could I have explained my situation to her in a way that she's actually, wow, Wheel of Fortune is in the reverse, but the Ace of Wands is upright. Can she see me as a whole new man? If you notice, we actually have like this kind of like a big old seed pod that's opening up, and then we realize it's been like a mold of a man who's getting, you know, this is opening back up. Is it possible that, because part of them says it's too late, and then the other part says, unless it's a brand new beginning, is it possible that she's contemplating that? I would say it's exactly what it is. Let's see. I have almost used this whole deck. It's the first time I've ever done that, where I stuck with one deck the whole time. I didn't even want to change decks. This is like, this story belongs in this deck. Nine of Swords. She's nervous. She is. But High Priestess is here, and the Ace of Pentacles is here. She's nervous, and she's trying to not let emotion make decision, but trying to use logic. But her subconscious keeps busting in and saying, I already feel benevolent for this person. I already feel like I've actually fully forgiven them. It's not something I would have expected I would have done. It's not something I would have anticipated I could have felt this way. But I see it so differently now because they actually have laid themselves on the line, and I know that they haven't held back anything. They came in too feeling like an absolute fool, and I saw that in them too. But that's why they didn't withhold anything. They just laid it all out because they thought I wouldn't want to even talk to them, but they still did this to try to set things right with me. There's something to be said for a person who has no intention other than trying to make things right, because that's really all they thought they could do, is explain and go ahead and be judged. I'm an idiot. I feel so foolish. I know you're not going to talk to me, but this is what happened anyway, because I always owed you the explanation. And, there is this energy of they've so surrendered their ego, and that's how she knows she's seeing the real them. This rose is still real, this bite out of the apple. She is so tempted because she loves them still, but she also has fully forgiven them. And it's bizarre to recognize that, but this is a new beginning. This isn't about like, is it the right time for them to come back together? It's that it's almost the stuff of the past and all the the losted years, the wasted time. It doesn't matter. Page of Pentacles. Does it make sense? Could they have done things different? Blah, 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 blah. You know what? Screw it. It doesn't matter. It is what it was already. And thinking about it now and evaluating what was the better move and how could they have done things better, it's kind of like she says, I don't freaking care. New beginnings don't really bring with them all of the confusion of the past and the couldas and the wouldas and the shouldas. Seven of Pentacles. Instead, it's like, after all this time, if my nerves and my brain and my body and my cardiovascular system and everything, if they and myself have still always thought of each other, and they had the courage to come toward me after all this time and to lay everything out, then a bunch of growth has already happened. And it even kind of starts to make it feel like, even in the time that we were apart, maybe we weren't so apart after all. There's a lot going on in this story. We have the World in the reverse, the Eight of Wands in the reverse, the Hierophant in the reverse, the Two of Swords, the Hanged Man, and the Knight of Cups. All of the blockages, all of this mess, all of the, again, maybe they didn't always listen to their higher self. Maybe she didn't either. It wasn't time that they could have started something new up until now. So there was no point in talking up until now. There wasn't any need to do the, what should I do? What should I not do? Because it's like, we're all in or we can't be together. It's one or the other. These two would not have been comfortable being like, well, I have all this problem. I can't talk to you. There was no point really in them attempting to have stayed linked together during all of this time that they were apart. There was no point in it. They couldn't have stayed together because for them in this story, they're either in each other's lives completely connected, or they would never have been satisfied being apart. So nothing could have gone better or different, as it turns out, because the problems that arose had to be dealt with, and that was going to require them to be apart. At this point, there's no more need to be apart. We have the Chariot upright. We have the Temperance. We have the Devil. We got the Angel and the Devil here. Is anybody here perfect? No. Is there a chance to really smooth out the problems of the past? Yes. Is there still fear? Sure. But is it worth moving through the fear and trying to, take hold of what life can offer and what they could have together? I would say a resounding yes for these two. King of Cups in the reverse. There's a little bit of fear, like, is this love? Is this something, or was this some big old test? We have 8 of Cups. We have 4 of Swords. Well, they've both been apart long enough to heal. That's for sure. They've walked separately for so long. Both of them have been quite lonely, and both of them have had quite a bit of time to heal anything that was deep problem. She held a lot of love for them with that Queen of Cups, always has. She may be realizing that and realizing, I need to tell them that. Now it's her time to speak. There's been a lot of thinking about this on her end, and now I think she's ready to open up and say something. The Hermit is like, I've been silent, but now, especially with this, again, that glowing egg, right, which is what we saw here, it feels completely new. I think she's held her tongue and she's thought about stuff for a little bit, and then I think she's about ready to tell them, all this time you were still my 4 of Wands. I get it. You tried to protect me as best you could. We have the bird bath here protected by the 4 cypress trees. 9 of Cups, Page of Cups, 2 of Wands. It's like, she said, and I actually have had a decent life, even while you've been away. There's been a lot of great moments. Yeah, I wish I could have shared them with you. And to find out you were still thinking of me, that says a lot. And yeah, I always hoped that someday you would find your way. If I'm honest, I always hoped someday you would find your way back to me. I couldn't go chasing after you. I knew that. But I always hoped someday you'd find your way back to me. I didn't know if you would, but yeah, I'm not even going to shuffle these because we only have 3 cards left. We have a 7 of Cups, we have a 7 of Swords, and we have a 5 of Swords. Cards of change and transformation. These two held on to each other all this time. Through all of this, they were in a world where it was how do I do this? Where they were this burned out tree. There was no real growth. They have their arm still holding on to her through this rock. She's been over here in a world full of boulders, but she's been holding on to them too. They didn't know how this would ever work again, but there was always a hope. And they did keep her their secret, their wish during all of the difficulties that they went through. Like we said at the beginning, she has been locked in their mind, something that they didn't admit. They kept her kind of a secret, like someday, I will maybe be able to talk to her again. But for now, I needed to keep her safe. She has always held on to them, even as they've been out battling. All I can say is this is the first time I've ever used one deck and used the entire deck. So that's momentous. And I mean, I've never done that before in all the years I've been doing this. So that was a little bit different. This was not an easy life story for these two, but I would say that their life together, all those things had to change, right? 7s and 5s to end on those numbers. It means that these two have every possibility at this point to change the outcome of their life. Everything that needed to be worked through, changed. This is their time. If they want to take advantage of the time that they have on this planet, and now they want to be together, there's no more obstacles unless they choose there to be. So I'm going to leave this one here. It looks actually really beautiful and really hopeful, and I cannot believe this is an hour long, but it is what it is. Thank you guys for being here. It's going to be days before I can release this video, but thanks for whenever you do see it. All right, bye.